Commander Rex Harrison adjusted his dress uniform one last time before stepping into the diplomatic chamber. The Peace Summit was supposed to be humanity's grand entrance into galactic politics. Key word being supposed to be. Rex had a sinking feeling that things were about to go spectacularly wrong, which, given humanity's track record with first impressions, was practically guaranteed. The Zephyrian delegation stood at the far end of the crystalline conference room, and Rex had to admit they looked impressive. 8 feet tall, built like tanks wrapped in obsidian armor, with glowing red eyes that could probably melt steel. Their leader wore ceremonial battle gear that screamed I could snap you like a twig and use your bones as toothpicks. "Welcome, warriors of Zephyr," Rex said, extending his hand in what he hoped was a universal gesture of friendship. "We come in peace, bearing gifts of goodwill." The lead Zephyrian, who introduced himself as Warlord Krex, stared at Rex's outstretched hand like it was a particularly offensive insect. Behind Rex, his aide Tommy Chen was already unpacking the carefully selected Earth delicacies they'd brought as peace offerings. "Behold," Tommy announced cheerfully, "artisanal cheese crackers, premium beef jerky, and our finest selection of energy bars. Perfect for the busy warrior on the go." The silence that followed was so thick you could have cut it with a plasma sword. Every Zephyrian in the room went rigid, their red eyes flaring brighter. Rex felt his diplomatic career flashing before his eyes. "You dare," Krex rumbled, his voice like an avalanche having an argument with a volcano, "to offer us rations? As if we were common soldiers begging for scraps?" Rex blinked. "Well, technically they're artisanal." Silence. Krex's roar shook the walls. "You insult our honor with your pathetic food offerings. Do you think we are pets to be fed treats?" Tommy leaned over to Rex. "Should I mention the trail mix?" "Absolutely not," Rex whispered back, his diplomatic training finally kicking in. Unfortunately, it kicked in about 10 seconds too late. Krex drew himself up to his full intimidating height. "The Zephyrian Empire hereby declares war on the human species. We shall crush your worlds and salt your fields with the ashes of your civilization." Rex couldn't help himself. "Over cheese crackers?" "Over the insult to our warrior pride," Krex clarified. "We were engineered for conquest, forged in the fires of eternal warfare. We know only battle, only victory, only the honor of combat. Your weak gestures of friendship are meaningless to us." And that's when Rex realized they weren't dealing with a normal alien species. These weren't beings who had evolved diplomacy alongside warfare. They were literally living weapons, biological war machines with about as much capacity for peaceful negotiation as a rabid wolverine in a blender factory. As the Zephyrians filed out, presumably to start preparing for humanity's destruction, Rex turned to Tommy. "Well, that went better than expected." "Better than expected?" Tommy stared at him. "They just declared war on us because we offered them snacks." Rex shrugged. "I was expecting them to declare war because I mispronounced their names. At least this time we know exactly what we did wrong." He paused. "Though I still maintain that artisanal cheese crackers are perfectly respectable diplomatic gifts." Tommy shook his head. "We're doomed." "Probably," Rex agreed. "But hey, at least we'll go down in history as the species that started an interstellar war with appetizers. That's got to count for something." As alarm klaxons began wailing throughout the space station, Rex couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was about to learn a very expensive lesson about cultural sensitivity. Again. 3 days later, Rex found himself in an emergency briefing room aboard the Earth Defense Fleet flagship, surrounded by very angry military brass and one very excited scientist. Doctor. Melody Finch was practically bouncing in her chair, her wild gray hair making her look like she'd been struck by lightning while thinking happy thoughts. "Oh, this is fascinating," she gushed, pulling up holographic displays of Zephyrian anatomy. "Absolutely fascinating. They're not really a naturally evolved species at all." Admiral Brooks, a man who looked like he'd been carved from granite and disappointment, glared at the displays. "What do you mean, not naturally evolved?" "They're artificial," Dr. Finch explained, zooming in on cellular structures. "Bioengineered. created by an ancient species called the architects approximately 2,000 years ago. Look at these neural pathways. They're hardwired for aggression, tactical thinking, and pack coordination. But there's something missing. Rex leaned forward. Missing how? No emotional processing centers for what we'd consider positive emotions. No capacity for empathy, joy, friendship, or contentment. They literally cannot experience happiness the way we understand it. They were designed as the perfect military force. So they're living weapons, Admiral Brooks said grimly. Living weapons with a serious design flaw, Dr. Finch continued. The architects programmed them for endless conquest, but never gave them an off switch. They're compelled to fight, to seek honor through battle, because that's the only way their brains can produce anything approaching satisfaction. Rex studied the neural scans. What happened to their creators? Best guess? The Zephyrians conquered them too. The architects created a species so effective at warfare that it eventually turned on its makers. Classic mistake. Never build something more dangerous than you can control. And now they're pointed at us, Admiral Brooks muttered. Dr. Finch nodded enthusiastically. Their leader, this warlord Krex, is particularly interesting. He's over 500 years old. They've extended lifespans to maximize their usefulness as soldiers. But he's been fighting non-stop for centuries without ever experiencing genuine connection or friendship. Psychologically speaking, he's probably the loneliest being in the galaxy. Rex blinked. Are you saying their warlord has abandonment issues? I'm saying he's a walking emotional disaster held together by genetic programming and sheer stubbornness. They all are. Imagine being hardwired to crave something you can literally never have. Which is what exactly? Admiral Brooks asked. Community. Belonging. The simple pleasure of shared experiences with others. They're a warrior culture that's never learned how to be anything except warriors. Rex stared at the holographic display showing Krex's imposing figure. So what you're telling me is that we're about to be destroyed by the galaxy's most dangerous and emotionally repressed military force. Precisely, Dr. Finch said cheerfully. Isn't it wonderful? We're dealing with beings who have no concept of diplomacy, compromise, or peaceful coexistence. They know only war because that's all they were designed to know. Admiral Brooks stood up. Then we fight them. With what? Rex asked. Our ships are outgunned, our soldiers are outnumbered, and they've been perfecting warfare for 2 millennia while we were still figuring out agriculture. So what do you suggest, Commander? Admiral Brooks's voice carried the weight of impending defeat. Rex looked at Dr. Finch's research, then at the tactical displays showing the Zephyrian fleet positioning for attack. An insane idea was starting to form in his head. The kind of idea that would either save humanity or get him court-martialed. Possibly both. I need to see our prisoners of war, he said finally. Admiral Brooks frowned. What prisoners? We haven't fought them yet. The advanced scouts they sent to study our defenses. We've got 3 of them in holding, right? Rex stood up. I want to observe how they interact with our people. Why? Rex grinned, and Dr. Finch recognized the expression of someone about to do something magnificently stupid. Because if they were designed to be perfect soldiers, then maybe the solution isn't to outfight them. Maybe it's to help them become something else entirely. The holding facility on Deck 7 was about as welcoming as a tax audit. 3 Zephyrian scouts sat in separate containment cells, each one looking like they could bench press a hover tank. What Rex hadn't expected was the sound of laughter echoing through the corridor. Full house, aces over eights, came a cheerful voice from Cell 2. Red AM and weep, big guy. Rex peered through the observation window to see something that defied all logic. Pete Murphy, the station's maintenance chief, was playing poker with a Zephyrian warrior. Pete was a middle-aged guy from Brooklyn who looked like he'd never met a problem he couldn't fix with duct tape and inappropriate humor. The Zephyrian, his nameplate read Vex, was staring at his cards with the concentration of someone trying to solve quantum physics. I do not understand this bluffing concept, he said in a voice like grinding metal. Why would you claim strength when you possess weakness? That's the beauty of it, Vex, Pete explained, dealing another hand. Sometimes pretending to be weak makes you strong, and sometimes pretending to be strong shows how weak you really are. It's all about reading the other guy. But this serves no tactical purpose in combat. Buddy, this isn't combat. This is fun. Vex tilted his massive head. Fun? Rex watched, fascinated, as Pete tried to explain the concept of enjoyment to a being who'd never experienced it. It was like watching someone teach quantum mechanics to a goldfish, except the goldfish was 8 feet tall and could probably kill everyone on the station. Fun is when you do something that makes you feel good inside, Pete said. Not because you have to, not because it helps you survive, but just because you like doing it. Vex examined his cards again. This sensation of feeling good inside, I do not recognize it from my programming. Maybe that's because your programming is missing a few important features, Pete suggested, raising the bet with a handful of poker chips they'd fashioned from spare parts. For the next hour, Rex observed something unprecedented in galactic history, a Zephyrian warrior slowly discovering the concept of leisure. Vex began to show what could charitably be called curiosity about human customs. He asked about Earth food, human families, and why Pete seemed to enjoy fixing things even when they weren't broken. The breakthrough came when Pete told a joke about a chicken crossing the road. It wasn't even a good joke. It was the kind of dad joke that made people groan and question your life choices. But something in Vex's neural pathways must have misfired, because he made a sound Rex had never heard from a Zephyrian before. He laughed. It started as a rumbling in his chest, like an engine trying to turn over, then built into something that could only be described as pure, bewildered joy. Vex looked around, startled by his own reaction. What was that? He asked, touching his throat. That, my friend, was laughter, Pete said, grinning. Congratulations. You just experienced humor. I enjoyed that experience, Vex said wonderingly. Is this what humans call happiness? Part of it. Yeah. Rex backed away from the observation window, his mind racing. If one Zephyrian could learn to laugh, could others learn different emotions? Could they be taught friendship, compassion, maybe even love? He found Dr. Finch in the science lab, still analyzing Zephyrian neural patterns. Melody, I need you to scan Vex's brain again. Why? Has something changed? He just laughed at a joke about poultry crossing transportation infrastructure. Dr. Finch nearly dropped her tablet. That's impossible. Their brains don't have the neural pathways for. She stopped, staring at the real-time scans coming from the holding cells. Oh my God, look at this. New neural pathways were forming in Vex's brain, connections that hadn't existed in the original Zephyrian design. The rigid military programming was adapting, creating space for experiences the architects had never intended. The human interaction is rewriting his neural architecture, Dr. Finch whispered. He's literally evolving past his programming. Rex felt a grin spreading across his face. Then we don't need to defeat the Zephyrians. We don't? Hey. No, we need to befriend them. It was the most ridiculous military strategy in human history. It was also their only chance of survival. Convincing Earth Command to weaponize human friendship was exactly as difficult as it sounds. Rex spent 2 hours in a video conference with generals and admirals who looked at him like he'd suggested defeating the enemy by teaching them interpretive dance. Let me understand this correctly, Admiral Brooks said slowly. Your plan to stop an invasion by genetically engineered super soldiers is to make friends with them? Strategically applied friendship, Rex corrected, with pizza. Pizza, repeated General Martinez flatly. And movie nights. Don't forget movie nights, Dr. Finch added helpfully. The silence that followed could have been bottled and sold as a cure for insomnia. Finally, Admiral Brooks rubbed his temples. Commander Harrison, we have 17 Zephyrian battlecruisers positioning for assault on our outer colonies. Are you seriously telling me the solution is a slumber party? I'm telling you that their entire military doctrine is based on honor, conquest, and individual glory, Rex explained. But what happens when you introduce concepts they've never encountered? Cooperation for mutual benefit. Shared experiences that create emotional bonds. The simple pleasure of belonging to something bigger than warfare. On the screen, General Martinez leaned forward. And you think this will work because one prisoner laughed at a joke? I think it will work because Vex isn't just laughing now, Rex said. He's asking questions about human culture, showing concern for Pete's well-being, and yesterday he helped fix a broken ventilation unit without being asked. He's developing empathy. Dr. Finch pulled up the neural scans. The changes are accelerating. Every positive social interaction creates new pathways. It's like watching evolution in fast forward. How long do we have? Admiral Brooks asked. Krex's fleet will reach the Titan colony in 6 days, Rex said. But they're sending advanced teams to scout our defenses. If we can convert those scouts. They'll convert others, Dr. Finch finished. Emotional states can be contagious, especially in species with hive mind tendencies. Admiral Brooks stared at them both for a long moment. This is the most insane plan I've ever heard. Yes, sir. It'll never work. Probably not, sir. And if it fails, we're all dead. That's the general idea, sir. Another pause. Approved. God help us all. 3 days later, every human outpost in the Outer Rim had been converted into what Rex privately called friendship stations. The cargo holds that once contained military supplies now carried pizza ovens, gaming consoles, and enough sports equipment to outfit a small planet. The results were extraordinary. The first group of Zephyrian scouts arrived at the mining station on Kepler 442 billion expecting to find defensive positions and weapon emplacements. Instead, they found humans playing basketball in the main hangar. Greetings, warriors, called out Maria Santos, the station commander. Want to join our game? We could use some height on our team. The Zephyrians stared at the spectacle of humans throwing a ball through elevated hoops for no apparent strategic purpose. This is a training exercise? One asked. This is fun, Maria explained. Winner gets first pick at pizza toppings. 2 hours later, Zephyrian warriors were arguing about the relative merits of pineapple on pizza while attempting free throws. Their rigid military formations had dissolved into something resembling actual social interaction. Meanwhile, at the research station on Europa, things were getting even more interesting. Dr. Janet Kim had introduced a group of Zephyrian infiltrators to movie night, starting with classic Earth cinema. I do not understand, said a warrior named Thex, watching The Princess Bride with rapt attention. Why does the human Wesley claim to be the dread pirate Roberts when he is clearly not? Because sometimes the story is more important than the facts, Janet explained. He needed people to believe he was dangerous. Like bluffing in the card game. Exactly like bluffing. By the time they reached the sword fight scene, 3 Zephyrian soldiers were cheering for Inigo Montoya. When the credits rolled, Thex turned to Janet with something approaching wonder in his glowing red eyes. This love concept that drives the narrative, I wish to understand it better. Love's complicated, Janet said. But we've got 6 more movies in the queue if you want to explore the theme. The reports coming in from across the Outer Rim painted the same picture. Zephyrian advance forces were abandoning their military objectives in favor of pizza parties, pick-up basketball games, and lengthy discussions about human philosophy. Back on the command ship, Warlord Krex was growing increasingly agitated. His carefully planned invasion was falling apart because his scouts kept getting distracted by what appeared to be recreational activities. Status report, he demanded as another team of infiltrators checked in. Sir, the humans are difficult to categorize, reported Captain Zax. They appear to have no significant military defenses, but they possess a form of psychological warfare we have not encountered. Explain. They invited us to participate in a ritual called barbecue and introduced us to a food preparation method that involves fire and communal consumption. Several of our warriors have requested extended assignment to study these tactics. Krex's red eyes flared brighter. Are you telling me that my elite scouts have been compromised by cooking? The humans also demonstrated a recreational activity called karaoke, Zax continued. Warrior Nex has discovered he has what they call a good voice and wishes to perform something called Don't Stop Believing at their next gathering. The communication ended with sounds that could only be described as Zephyrian singing, followed by human cheering and applause. Krex stared at the blank screen for a long moment. His perfect war machine was developing feelings. His emotionless soldiers were learning to laugh, to play, to care about beings outside their own species. It was everything the architects had specifically programmed them to avoid. And somehow, impossibly, his warriors seemed happy. Krex's war council was the most pathetic gathering of military leadership in galactic history. Half his commanders were asking for recipe exchanges, and the other half were debating the merits of something called fantasy football leagues. This ends now, Krex declared, his voice shaking the bulkheads. I will face their leader in single combat and restore honor to our species. But sir, ventured Commander Yex, the humans have invited us to something called a block party next week. Apparently there will be ice cream. Krex's roar could have shattered glass. I challenge Rex Harrison to personal combat. Winner takes all. No more of this friendship nonsense. The duel was set for the neutral ground of Station Omega, a defunct trading post between human and Zephyrian space. Rex arrived with nothing but his standard-issue sidearm and what his grandmother used to call aggressive optimism. Krex towered over him in full battle armor, carrying weapons that could level city blocks. The contrast was almost comical. David versus Goliath, if Goliath had been specifically engineered to be the galaxy's most efficient killing machine. You have corrupted my warriors with your weakness, Krex snarled. I will cleanse their shame with your blood. Before we start hitting each other, Rex said, dodging a massive fist that left a crater in the deck plating. Can I ask you something? You may speak before you die. Rex rolled behind a support beam as Krex's energy weapon melted through solid steel. When's the last time someone asked how you're doing? The attack stopped. Krex stood frozen, his weapon humming with unused energy. I mean, really asked, Rex continued, stepping out from cover. Not about battle plans or conquest strategies or warrior honor. When's the last time someone cared about you as a person? I am not a person, Krex said, but his voice had lost its thunder. I am a weapon. Are you? Because weapons don't get lonely. Weapons don't spend 500 years wondering if there's something more to existence than endless fighting. Krex's massive form began to shake. You know nothing of my burden. I know you've been fighting for centuries without a single friend, Rex said gently. I know you've never experienced a birthday party, never shared a meal with someone who cared about you, never had anyone ask about your dreams or fears or hopes. I have no dreams, Krex whispered. Everyone has dreams, even if they're buried under centuries of programming. The great warlord sank to his knees, and Rex realized he was seeing something unprecedented in galactic history, a Zephyrian crying. The tears that fell from Krex's glowing red eyes were actual drops of liquid sadness, each one representing centuries of suppressed loneliness. I am so tired, Krex said, his voice breaking. So tired of fighting, of conquest, of proving my worth through violence. But it is all I know, all I was made for. Rex approached carefully and did something that should have gotten him killed. He put his hand on Krex's armored shoulder. Maybe it's time to learn something new. The breakdown that followed could be heard throughout the station. 500 years of accumulated grief, loneliness, and desperate need for connection came pouring out of the galaxy's most feared warrior. And somehow, impossibly, Rex found himself hugging an 8-foot-tall killing machine while making soothing noises. There, Rex said, patting Krex's back. It's okay. You're going to be okay. The news of their warlord's emotional breakthrough spread through the Zephyrian fleet like wildfire. Within hours, warriors who had never experienced empathy were suddenly overcome with centuries of suppressed feelings. The rigid military hierarchy collapsed as soldiers abandoned their posts to comfort each other. X, who had been monitoring the situation from the human flagship, found himself in the unprecedented position of being the most emotionally stable Zephyrian in the fleet. It appears, he reported to Dr. Finch, that we are all having what you would call feelings. How are you handling it? She asked. With great difficulty and considerable confusion, Vex admitted. But also with something I believe you call hope. The ancient architect's perfect military programming, refined over millennia to create the ultimate warrior race, that had been completely overwritten by the simple human concept of caring about each other. It was the most thorough military defeat in galactic history, achieved without firing a single shot. 6 months later, Rex stood on the observation deck of the newly renamed Friendship Station, watching the most bizarre sight in known space: Zephyrian warriors setting up what appeared to be the galaxy's largest bounce house. The Titan colony block party is going to be legendary, Pete Murphy said, joining Rex at the viewport. Vex has been planning it for weeks. Indeed, Vex had discovered a natural talent for event planning that bordered on the supernatural. His military precision, originally designed for coordinating battlefield tactics, had found new purpose in organizing entertainment schedules and catering logistics. His food truck, Vex's Galactic Grill, had become the most popular mobile restaurant in 3-star systems. How's Crex doing with his support group? Rex asked. Better than expected. Turns out 5 centuries of warrior trauma creates a pretty strong bond between people working through similar issues. Pete grinned. Yesterday he helped a former Zephyrian general learn how to make friendship bracelets. The transformation had been remarkable to watch. The Zephyrian Empire had effectively dissolved, not through military defeat but through mass therapeutic breakthrough. Former warriors were discovering talents they never knew they possessed: art, music, cooking, engineering projects that created rather than destroyed. Some had struggled more than others with the transition. A few hardliners had attempted to maintain their warrior traditions, but it's difficult to sustain a culture of eternal warfare, when your soldiers keep stopping mid-battle to ask if their opponents are okay, and if they'd like to grab coffee afterward. Dr. Finch emerged from her lab, practically glowing with excitement. Rex, you need to see this. She led him to the research section, where displays showed Zephyrian neural patterns that looked nothing like the original military programming. New pathways had formed, creating capacity for complex emotions, creative thinking, and social bonding that far exceeded human capabilities. They're not becoming more human, she explained. They're becoming something entirely new. A warrior species that chose connection over conquest. Any word from the other galactic powers? Rex asked. The Altarian Confederacy wants to hire Zephyrian party planners for their diplomatic functions. The Silicon-based collectives are requesting lessons in emotional expression. And the Andorian Trade Alliance. Dr. Finch paused. They're asking if humans can help them with their own social problems. Rex blinked. We're accidentally becoming galactic therapists. More like friendship consultants, Pete said. Apparently word's gotten out that humans can teach anyone to get along with anyone else. Through the viewport, Rex watched Crex demonstrating proper frosting techniques to a group of former enemy generals. The sight of the galaxy's most feared warlord wearing an apron that read "Kiss the Cook," while decorating cupcakes, was either the most beautiful or most ridiculous thing Rex had ever seen. Possibly both. You know what the really crazy part is? Rex said. We didn't conquer them with superior technology or military strategy. We conquered them with the basic human assumption that everyone deserves to have friends. Is it conquest if everyone ends up happier? Dr. Finch asked. Rex considered this. The Zephyrians were no longer a threat to anyone. Human space was more secure than ever, and the galaxy had gained thousands of enthusiastic party planners, chefs, and surprisingly talented amateur musicians. Several former Zephyrian warships had been converted into traveling entertainment venues. I guess that depends on your definition of conquest, he said finally. But if accidentally taking over the galaxy through aggressive friendship is wrong, I don't want to be right. In the distance, the first notes of what sounded suspiciously like Sweet Caroline being performed by a Zephyrian barbershop quartet drifted through the station's communication system. Rex grinned. Humanity's greatest weapon, it turned out, wasn't advanced technology or military prowess. It was the simple, stubborn insistence that everyone, even genetically engineered killing machines, deserved to experience joy, friendship, and the occasional really good slice of pizza. And if that wasn't the most human way to accidentally conquer the galaxy, Rex didn't know what was. "So what's next?" Pete asked. Rex watched Krex teach a group of younglings how to properly flip burgers, while wearing his galaxy's best space dad apron. "I hear the crystalline hive mind has some serious communication issues. Apparently they haven't had a good conversation in about 3,000 years. "Road trip?" Pete asked hopefully. "Road trip," Rex confirmed. "Someone's got to teach the galaxy how to be friends with itself." And somewhere in the background, barely audible over the sounds of interspecies karaoke and the sizzling of Vex's famous friendship burgers, the universe became just a little bit more peaceful. One barbecue at a time,